Thank you for choosing my video to watch. Here we have 3 stories of online dating. What terror will unfold? Let's find out, shall we?
The stormy night had cloaked the city in a thick veil of darkness, but that didn't deter Ella from scrolling through the online dating site. She was a single woman, who had tried everything from blind dates to bars, but nothing had clicked. So, she decided to take a chance on the digital world of love. After hours of browsing, Ella stumbled upon a profile that caught her eye. The man in the picture had piercing green eyes and a charming smile that was hard to resist. His bio was well crafted and suggested they had a lot in common. Ella's heart fluttered as she sent him a message, eagerly anticipating his response. To her delight, the man replied within minutes. They talked for hours, sharing jokes and personal details. The man, David, seemed like the perfect match. He proposed they meet in person at a bar downtown, and Ella agreed. As the date approached, Ella's nerves began to fray. She couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that something was amiss. What if David wasn't who he claimed to be? What if he was a dangerous predator waiting to pounce on her? Despite her fears, Ella arrived at the bar, scanning the room for David. But he was nowhere to be seen. Just as she was about to give up, a man tapped her on the shoulder. It wasn't David, it was his cousin, Andy. Ella felt uneasy, but agreed to wait with him for David's arrival. As time dragged on, Andy became increasingly inappropriate, making vulgar jokes and touching her inappropriately. Ella was about to leave when David finally showed up. But something was off. David looked nothing like his photos. His eyes were sunken, and his smile was forced. Ella felt trapped as David and Andy pressured her to drink more and more. She realized, too late, that she was in grave danger. As the night progressed, it became evident that David and Andy were not who they seemed to be. Ella realized that she had fallen prey to their trap. They had lured her in with a fake profile and were now intent on hurting her. Ella tried to fight back, but it was futile. The men dragged her out of the bar and into a car, taking her to an abandoned warehouse far from the city. Terrified and alone, Ella knew that this was it, the end. For hours, the men tortured her, leaving her battered and broken on the cold, hard floor of the warehouse. As Ella's life ebbed away, she regretted ever clicking on David's profile, hoping that others would learn from her mistake and be more cautious in the dangerous world of online dating. As her spirit departed, Ella's last thought was of her loved ones, who would never know what really happened to her. The online world had proven to be both cruel and unforgiving, and Ella had paid the ultimate price for her naivety.
It was a dark and stormy night, the kind of night where evil things lurked in the shadows, waiting to pounce on unsuspecting prey. Emily sat alone in her cramped apartment, feeling the weight of loneliness crushing her soul. She stared at the classified section of the local newspaper, hoping for a glimmer of hope. And then she saw it, a Lonely Hearts advertisement that seemed to be written just for her. The words seemed to crawl off the page, reaching out to her like a seductive siren song. Emily's heart raced as she picked up the phone and dialed the number. A gravelly voice answered, and Emily's blood ran cold. There was something off about the woman's voice, something that made her skin crawl. But she couldn't resist the woman's soft-spoken charm, which sent shivers down her spine. As they talked for hours, Emily found herself drawn to the woman's dark and twisted stories of her past. She couldn't explain the fascination she felt, but it was like a drug that she couldn't resist. The woman on the phone invited Emily to her mansion, a foreboding and ominous structure that loomed over the landscape like a haunted specter. Emily's heart raced as she approached the door, feeling like she was walking into a trap. As they sat down to dinner, Emily began to notice strange things. The woman's stories of her past were inconsistent, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something from her. And then she saw it, a flash of something dark and sinister in the woman's eyes. As the night wore on, Emily's unease grew into a suffocating sense of dread. The woman's soft-spoken charm gave way to something more menacing, like a predator preparing to strike. And then Emily stumbled upon a secret room hidden behind a bookshelf, a room that reeked of death and decay. In that room, she found the truth. The woman she had fallen in love with was actually a deranged killer, with a long and bloody past. But Emily had a secret of her own: she was also a serial killer. Shocked but intrigued, the two killers shared their stories and soon became fascinated with each other's methods. They decided to team up and continue their killing spree together, a twisted dance of death and destruction. Their twisted love affair lasted for months, a never-ending nightmare of blood and violence. They roamed the streets, leaving a trail of mutilated corpses in their wake. And as the body count rose, so did the intensity of their love. But it all came crashing down in a hail of gunfire, as the police finally caught up to them. Emily and the woman were killed in an intense shootout, their bodies riddled with bullets. As the investigation continued, the police tried to piece together what happened between the two killers. It was a mystery that would never be fully solved, as their secrets died with them. The world would never know the full extent of their depravity, but it was clear that their love had led to a path of destruction and horror. And for Emily, the empty spaces in her soul had finally been filled, but at a cost too great to bear.
I hope you enjoy the content I upload. If you like what I'm doing, why not think about clicking on the subscribe button to keep up to date on my uploads. Thank you all for the great support.
It was a typical Saturday night, and I was browsing through dating apps, looking for someone interesting to connect with. That's when I got a notification from a woman named Samantha. Her profile picture was interesting, and I immediately felt drawn to her. We started chatting, and over the next few days, our conversations grew deeper, and we started sharing details about our lives. As our online friendship grew, I started to realize that Samantha had a dark aura about her. There was something unsettling in the way she talked about her past, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that there was something off about her. But I kept brushing off my doubts, telling myself that I was just being paranoid. One night, Samantha suggested that we meet in person. I hesitated for a moment, but eventually agreed to meet her at a local coffee shop. As I waited for her to arrive, I felt my nerves getting the better of me. But when Samantha arrived, she smiled at me, and my worries melted away. Over the next few hours, we talked about everything under the sun. But as the night wore on, the conversation took a strange turn. Samantha started talking about her past in a cryptic way, mentioning things like trauma and regret. I tried to steer the conversation back to safer ground, but she seemed fixated on the past. As we were leaving the coffee shop, Samantha grabbed my arm and whispered, "I need to show you something." I hesitated, unsure if I should follow her, but her grip tightened, and I found myself reluctantly following her down a dark alleyway. As we walked deeper into the alley, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I had no idea what Samantha wanted to show me, but I was starting to get a bad feeling about the whole thing. As we approached a dumpster, Samantha pointed to a small pile of clothes lying next to it. "That's where it happened," she whispered, her eyes fixed on the clothes. "That's where I did it." I felt a chill run down my spine, and I tried to pull away from her, but she held me tight, her gaze unflinching. And in that moment, I knew that Samantha wasn't just a troubled person with a dark past. She was a monster, capable of unspeakable things. I broke away from her and ran down the alley, my heart racing. When I looked back, Samantha was staring at me, her face twisted into a demonic grin. I knew at that moment that I had narrowly escaped becoming her next victim. But Samantha wasn't content with just scaring me. Over the next few weeks, I received cryptic messages from her, taunting me with hints of what she was capable of. I tried to block her on every platform I could find, but she always found a way to reach out to me. And then, one day, she finally succeeded in getting to me. As I was walking home from work, she abducted me and took me to the same alleyway where she had shown me the pile of clothes. I don't remember much after that. I woke up in a hospital bed, the doctors telling me that I had been severely beaten and left for dead. They never found Samantha, despite a nationwide manhunt. And now, years later, I still live in fear of her return. Every rustle of leaves outside my window or strange message on my phone sends my heart racing. I don't know how to escape this constant state of terror, but I know that I'll never be the same again. The attack left me with physical scars and a haunting fear that seemed to follow me everywhere I went. I could never shake off the feeling that Samantha was still out there, waiting to strike again. I tried to move on with my life, seeking therapy and support from friends and family. But the trauma lingered, and I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder, never feeling safe or secure. Months turned into years, and the memory of that fateful night started to fade. But just when I thought I had left Samantha behind for good, she came back into my life. It started with a single message on social media, a simple "hello" that sent shivers down my spine. I tried to ignore it, but the messages kept coming, each one more sinister than the last. I knew that I needed to take action, to protect myself from Samantha's relentless pursuit. But I also knew that I couldn't do it alone. I reached out to the police, providing them with as much information as I could about Samantha's online presence and her past actions. They took my case seriously, launching a new investigation into her whereabouts and activities. Days turned into weeks, and the police finally made a breakthrough. Samantha had been spotted in a nearby town, and they were able to track her down to a secluded cabin in the woods. With a team of officers by my side, I braced myself for the confrontation that I had been dreading for so long. As we approached the cabin, I could feel my heart racing, my palms slick with sweat. But when we burst through the door, Samantha was nowhere to be found. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. We searched the cabin from top to bottom, but there was no sign of her. It was as if she had never been there at all. As we regrouped outside, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Was Samantha really gone for good, or was she still out there, waiting to strike again? The thought lingered in the back of my mind, a constant reminder of the darkness that had once consumed my life. But for now, at least, I could finally start to breathe a little easier, knowing that I had taken a step towards reclaiming my life from the shadow of Samantha's monstrous past.